You'd think that after World War II, America would be breathing a huge sigh of relief, right? Celebrating a hard won peace. But instead, a totally new kind of war began, a Cold War. And with it came this chilling period of intense suspicion that just swept across the nation, turning neighbors into suspects and fear into a political weapon. This was the Second Red Scare, and it was about to change the fabric of American life. And at the heart of it all was this one really powerful idea that the real threat wasn't just some army overseas. No, the real danger was already here, hiding in plain sight, working to tear the country apart from the inside out. So, how on earth did this happen? To really get it, you have to look at the world map right after the war. It was completely redrawn, basically dividing the entire globe into two very hostile camps. I mean, this conflict was fundamental. On one side, you've got the United States, championing things like democracy, capitalism, and individual freedom. And on the other, the Soviet Union, pushing an ideology of communism and total state control. For a lot of Americans, this wasn't just some political disagreement. It felt like an existential threat to their entire way of life. Yeah, this whole ideological battle, it didn't stay overseas for long. A series of massive international shocks brought the fear of communism crashing right down on the American home front, and that sparked a frantic nationwide hunt for subversives. And the speed of these events was just staggering. In 1949, America's monopoly on the atomic bomb, gone. The Soviets had their own. That same year, China, the most populous nation in the world, falls to communism. Then, by 1950, American soldiers are actually fighting communist forces in Korea. I mean, imagine living through that. It must have felt less like a series of events and more like a tidal wave, confirming everyone's worst fears that communism wasn't just spreading, it was winning. The U.S. government's main weapon in this internal war was the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC as it was called. Its mission was as simple as it was terrifying: to publicly investigate and expose anyone with suspected ties to communism, basically turning suspicion into a public spectacle. And one of HUAC's first and most public targets? Hollywood. The committee was absolutely convinced that communists were secretly embedding propaganda into American movies, using the silver screen to poison the minds of the public. And let's be clear, this wasn't just some abstract political debate. The hunt for communists had devastating real-world consequences for actual people. Just an accusation alone, often without a shred of proof, could completely destroy careers and shatter lives. 10. This one number would come to symbolize one of the most famous acts of defiance against the committee. They were known as the Hollywood 10, a group of writers and directors who were called before HUAC and flat out refused to answer questions about their political beliefs. They argued the committee was violating their First Amendment right to free speech. For that defiance, they were sent to prison. And just as devastatingly, they were blacklisted, which made it impossible for them to ever work again in the industry they loved. But the fear went way beyond Hollywood. In a case that completely gripped the nation, a married couple, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, faced the most serious accusation you can imagine: that they had passed secrets about the atomic bomb to the Soviet Union. The outcome was just shocking, and it really shows the immense stakes of the era. Despite worldwide protests and really serious questions about the fairness of their trial, the Rosenbergs were found guilty and executed. Their case became this powerful and tragic symbol of just how far the government was willing to go to fight what it saw as a threat from within. Now, this climate of fear was the perfect breeding ground for a new kind of political operator. And one politician managed to harness it like nobody else, becoming so infamous that his name would literally define the entire era: Senator Joseph McCarthy. This was the bombshell. In 1950, McCarthy stood up and declared he had a list of known communists who were actively working inside the U.S. government. But here's the crucial part. He never produced one single piece of credible evidence. In the panic of the moment, though, he didn't have to. The accusation alone was enough. McCarthy's tactics were so distinct that they actually gave birth to a new term: McCarthyism. And this wasn't just about hunting communists anymore. It was about a specific, toxic method, using smear tactics, guilt by association, and these theatrical public hearings to destroy people's reputations, all of it based on flimsy or sometimes completely non-existent proof. For a while there, McCarthy seemed unstoppable, until he made one critical mistake.
he decided to take on the U.S. Army. During the televised Army McCarthy hearings, the entire country got to watch his aggressive bullying style firsthand. Seeing him in action on their new TV sets, the public finally turned against him, and his power just collapsed.
But even after McCarthy was discredited, the damage was already done. The Second Red Scare left these deep and lasting scars on American society that would take decades to heal. Loyalty oaths became mandatory for millions of public employees. Books were banned from libraries. Artists were censored. But maybe the most damaging legacy of all was the chilling effect it had on free speech. People became afraid to express different opinions or even join certain political groups because they were terrified they'd be labeled un-American. So when you look back on it all, the Second Red Scare really serves as this powerful cautionary lesson. It shows just how easily national anxiety can be manipulated and how fear can be weaponized to erode the fundamental rights that are supposed to protect us, like freedom of speech and the presumption of innocence. And that leaves us with a really critical, timeless question. When we're faced with any threat, whether it's real or just perceived, how does a society protect itself without sacrificing the very liberties it claims to be defending? It's a challenge that every generation, including our own, has to confront.